Hello everybody! I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. My name is Dr. Daniel Page, but you can just call me Dan or Daniel. I want to welcome you to the first steps to computer programming using Java. This is an introductory series for generally aimed at people who have never programmed before. And we're going to be using the programming language Java. In this series, we'll be seeing a whole bunch of different things. But the whole point here is I want to really have a nice, short series of videos that will allow you to get really started programming, but also not lose too many of the details that you might need. So this series is tailored primarily to the general public, or those that are interested in programming. So I will not be going over very fine details. My idea here is I just really want to get us to a point where we can start writing some programs. So in this series, I'll be talking about the following things. So first, I'll be talking a little bit about what is programming. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the background, like how did we get to computers that you could write computer programs for. I'll talk briefly about that. Then I'll be transitioning to talking a little bit more how you can get your computer set up so that you can use an integrated development environment, or so-called IDE, or just think about different ways you can program on a computer using Java. What we'll be doing is I'll be working within an IDE, showing you how you can use one. So I'll be using, for example, Eclipse, but that's not required at all for this series. So we'll be keeping things rather simple here, and I'll be having some fun on the board here. We're going to be seeing a lot of fun demonstrations, and we'll be trying to get to doing and writing some computer programs as soon as we can, but in a way such that you get some, at least you learn something new. Beyond this, what we'll do is we'll start talking about things that we can do with programming. We'll start off with a very basic Hello World program. So from there, we're going to start talking about variables and other control structures that are very fundamental to how we perform and write computer programs. So when I say that, I mean if I give you some set of instructions to follow for some process that you have to carry out, these control structures modify how that occurs. So for example, there are so-called if statements that allow you to, if a condition is met, either it's true or false, you perform some task. And if it doesn't, then you don't perform the task. We'll be seeing some examples of these control structures with plenty of examples. So we'll see some examples of some programs, and then I'll be talking a little bit about so-called arrays. So very often you have it where a computer program has a series or a sequence of values that you want to store. Very often an array is a nice way of representing that as some set of values that you might have. So we'll talk a little bit about arrays. In addition, we'll talk about so-called functions or methods in Java. And then since Java is an object-oriented programming language, we'll talk about classes, and we may talk about the idea of polymorphism. The idea that you can take a type and you can represent it as many. So for example, I can have different classes that represent different kinds of objects. For example, I can have a car, a boat, and an airplane, and all of these are technically vehicles. So if I had a class that represented vehicles, a vehicle could be a car, it could be a boat, it could be an airplane. The idea programmably is that I'm able to actually treat all of these different objects under a certain set of operations like if they were of the same type, even though they are actually of many types. So there's some ways to do this in Java, among a lot of these other object-oriented programming languages. Now, the bigger things I want to talk a little bit about towards the end of this are some examples of things like input-output. So if you want to put some input into the computer program, how exactly can you do that with Java? And how can you process such data? And likewise, how can you output it? So we'll see some examples earlier on how to output things in Java to a console. And of course, beyond that, we'll of course see, I want to show you a little bit about how problem solving works. So we'll talk a little bit about different problems. In particular, I'll be highlighting so-called search problems. So these are where if I give you some set of values, your job is to tell me where it's located or if it doesn't exist. Or sorting, I give you a collection of objects. These could just be numbers, or just be simply an array, a collection of numbers. And I ask you to sort them from smallest to largest. That's an example of a sorting problem. So we'll be seeing these examples and maybe some more in this series. So I hope you're looking forward to the series, and I hope this will be a good first steps to computer programming using Java. So I want to say thank you very much, and I'll see you in a little bit. Have yourself a beautiful day.